What's up, Psychedelic Spotlight? I'm James, and I'd like to welcome you to the Psych Business Roundup, a segment where we gather the most important news stories of the past week when it comes to investing in psychedelic medicines. Today, it's all about clinical trials. Let's start with MindMed, who last week announced data from not one, but two different phase 1 clinical trials at a conference in Germany. The first was comparing the psychedelic effects of psilocybin to LSD. Here, they found something rather interesting. Apparently, 100 micrograms of LSD is perceptually equivalent to 200 milligrams of psilocybin. Now, this is important to know because we need to understand how different psychedelic compounds compare to each other, and there has been a lot of speculation about the relationship between LSD and psilocybin. So now, we have the first ever clinical evidence that at the right dose, there is an equivalency of acute psychedelic effects between the two compounds. The second trial that MindMed released data on studied the effects of taking psilocybin alone versus taking the drug while already on an SSRI, the most common form of antidepressant. Here, they found that the two compounds together was safe and did not affect the psychedelic experience, while it also eliminated the increases in stress and blood pressure sometimes associated with taking psilocybin on its own. If these findings hold up in later stage clinical trials, then it is possible that we could see future treatments rely not only on psychedelic therapy, but also combine that with traditional methods of treating depression. Personally, I'm a little bit surprised and conflicted by the results of these findings, but we're just going to have to wait until the results are fully released at the end of this year. Next up, we're going to be looking at small pharma, who announced that they have completed the world's first ever phase 1 clinical trial of DMT, dimethyltryptamine, and they have already begun phase 2A trials on the substance, making it, of course, the first ever phase 2 DMT clinical trial. In the phase 1 safety trial, Small Pharma found that in their 32 volunteers, there was a favorable safety profile with no serious adverse events reported, and their proprietary intravenous formulation of DMT was very well tolerated in all individuals. Or, in other words, they killed it. They have now begun their phase 2A study, which will attempt to treat 42 different people that have major depressive disorder with their version of DMT, and the results of this study are expected in the first half of 2022. As DMT is the substance that is personally most exciting to me, I am waiting with bated breath to get my hands on this data. Finally, we're going to be looking at Mydecine, whose partner Johns Hopkins University has announced that a clinical trial run by Dr. Matthew Johnson using psilocybin to treat smoking addiction is being funded by a US Federal Drug Research Agency as a, quote, high-risk clinical study. While Mydecine doesn't appear to be directly involved in this particular study, Mydecine, along with Johns Hopkins and Dr. Matthew Johnson, have their own phase 2 and 3 study attempting to induce smoking cessation using psilocybin. So obviously, there's going to be some synergies here between the two studies. And, as Mydecine is the company the furthest advanced in researching treating cigarette addiction with psilocybin, this company stands to gain the most. In general, it is exciting to see public funding for psychedelics, as it shows that we are getting more institutional buy-in from the important pieces of our society, in this case, the government. That's all for today, folks. This is James from the Psychedelic Investor. I'll see you next week.